So, let me introduce the speakers for today. We've got three speakers from HDK here today. My name is Hans. I'm director and founder at HDK. I'm a male in my mid-50s. I've got uh, trimmed beard, brown eyes, shaved head, and I'm wearing a green shirt today.
Hi, I'm Lavita. I'm a senior project manager here at HDK. I'm an Indian woman with black and gray hair that is tied up, and I'm wearing a pink shirt with white flowers.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a white woman in her mid-50s. I've got short brown hair and I'm wearing glasses. And I'm an audience specialist working with HDK, helping clients understand how they can match their websites to their audiences.
Great. So today we're going to talk about how you can audit your own website. So this idea, the principle behind this, I guess, is that sometimes it's not always the best thing to build a new website from scratch. There's a lot you can be doing to preserve the life of your website. And part of that process, I guess, is doing regular audits on different topics of different areas around your website. And we're going to cover some of those. We are going to start off with the things that you could probably, without very much technical expertise, cover yourself and audit yourself. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the things you might want to bring a specialist into to help you. And then we're also going to leave space for a discussion at the end where you can ask some questions. And we might be able to answer your questions. There might be other people in the room here that can answer your questions. We'll keep it as a discussion as much as we can. So I mentioned just now a checklist we're going to share with you. As I said, we're going to share it at the end. This is a checklist that you can copy and make your own. You can add your own things to the checklist. It will help you organize when to check things, who you might want to check it in the team, and places to keep note. So it's been created in a Google sheet. So that will be shared at the end, along with all the other links that we refer to in this session as well.
So picture this. You've heard of this great shop and you go and visit it, only to find that the lights aren't working, the floors are sticky, customer service is slow, and the layout is just confusing. Now, this would most likely be feeling frustrated and you'll leave the store. That's exactly what happens when your site loads slowly, has broken links, or is hard to navigate. It could lead to frustration, causing users to navigate away from your site. Now, let's say I was said shop owner and I'm seeing less visitors coming into my store and my profits have fallen. So I'd first need to understand why that is happening and assess what my options are. So do I start again from scratch, or are there things that I could be doing immediately to turn things around? This can be compared to someone thinking they need a new website when actually they might not be there yet. There may be steps that can be taken to improve visits to the website. So why does an audit of your website matter? So firstly, user experience. Are people getting what they need quickly? Is there outdated content on your website, like a Christmas promotion that's no longer applicable? Are your calls to action clear enough? Is your site accessible to everybody? Audits help you understand how users interact with your site, identify what content needs to be revised, and more importantly, where they get stuck or where the friction points are. Secondly is performance. Now, studies show that if your page takes longer than 3 seconds to load, over half of your users leave. That's potential customers gone before they even know what you're offering. A website audit helps you find what's slowing things down. Thirdly is security. Outdated plugins, missing HTTPS, or weak configurations make your site vulnerable to attacks. Whether you're collecting data or not, an audit can identify areas that need to be addressed, but also helps ensure that you're complying with privacy laws. And finally, is visibility. Google needs to understand your site in order to rank it. An audit checks for SEO issues such as broken links, missing titles, duplicate content, or confusing site structure. If your website isn't search engine friendly, It's like having a shop in the desert. It might be great, but no one can find it. In short, a website gives you a clear, honest picture of what's working, what's broken, and what can be improved. It's not just a technical exercise. It's about making sure your digital presence is working as hard as it should be for your business. So in this session, we'll go through a list of ways that you can audit your site. Whilst they will identify actions you can take yourself, they may also uncover actions that you might need your web agency to help you with. Think of it as calling an electrician to help fix the lights in the shop.
So, as Levita says, out-of-date information on a website can risk your visitors forming negative opinions about your organization and your brand. It's not just the obvious things like holiday opening times. It's also stale blogs, news articles that are months out of date, job vacancies which have long since been filled, staff changes, new trustees, and prices for membership or loyalty schemes which have been updated. So regular trawls for out-of-date information need to be diarized. I know how busy you all are, but ideally this should be as important as weekly sales figures or quarterly board reports. Maybe review your blog posts every couple of months and your news items every month, or schedule a trawl through your staff and trustee lists every 8 weeks. As Hans mentioned, we'll be giving you a checklist at the end of the webinar, and then you can decide on the timings yourselves. So those are things you can check and update. What about using what you know about your audiences to check more significant features of the site, such as user journeys, pain points, and clash points? Something I've been doing for HDK clients is using audience personas to look at different user journeys. So just on the next slide, you can see just the audience spectrum ones, which some of you are already using. So these are ones that you used to have to report back to the Arts Council, so Metroculturals, Kaleidoscope Creativity. And then on the next slide, we can see the Morris, Hargreaves, McIntyre, the culture segments, which again, you can adapt to web personas, or you can, as some of you are already doing, you can create your own. So we've been working with English National Ballet to create personas for their site, and it's a lot less daunting than it sounds. We've identified 6 different types of users and really fleshed them out so that they feel totally authentic. We've got regular attenders, we've got potential attenders, we've got class participants, digital engagements, and the spectrum of people who are likely to engage with the ENB website. So the next slide, which I'm really not expecting you to read because there's a lot of data on it, there's a lot of information on it, but it shows you the level of detail that we've gone into. So this persona is Janet, who is a regular English National Ballet attender. She's the equivalent to a Commuterland culture buff, effectively. We've looked at her needs and her expectations, her influences, her pain points, and we've checked that we've worked through each department at EMB to check that this has a real sense of authenticity. And just to show you on the next slide, the sort of headline features of some of the other personas that we've created. And then really what we've done is we've taken these personas, and on the next slide you can see for each of them we have populated a spreadsheet, a user journey spreadsheet. And we've considered, for instance, this would be an experience seeker just thinking about the audience agency. What would be an awareness? It would be that they see a digital ad or they have a friend's recommendation. A decision might be based on the videos, whether the videos are appropriate, they're loading quickly enough. A pain point might be that the language that you're using is not appropriate for that particular persona that you're working through at that moment. An opportunity might be that you have much, much clearer calls to action. So we have populated this spreadsheet for every single one of the personas that we've created. And what it's also allowed us to do is identify the clash points, which is one of the fundamentals. It also has allowed us to cross-sell, or think of the opportunities where we can cross-sell or sell up or simplify the journey. But coming back to those clash points, for instance, we've done some work with the Museum of the Home website to find out about facilities. So you'd have a mother accessing the Museum of the Home's website to look at facilities and activities for children versus the needs of an academic visiting the site to research an object in the museum's collection. Clearly very different journeys, but they're also very different expectations for the language, the images, the level of detail. And these personas have allowed us to really make those considerations. So the AMA, the Arts Marketing Association, have created a really useful guide for developing personas, which we will put a link to in the chat at the end of the webinar for you.
So with regards to website accessibility, there's some really simple things that you can check for. Using a tool such as WebAIM Contrast Checker, you can check to see if the font color and your background colors are accessible against each other. Note down what the issues are. And if you have the ability to change them in your CMS directly, then you should go ahead and do that. If you don't, it's worth getting in touch with your web developers and they can help you out with that. When it comes to videos and animation, you'll want to make sure that they can be paused. You'll also want to check and make sure that your videos have captions on them. Make a list of the videos that need editing and where pause buttons need to be incorporated, and then you can pass them on to the appropriate parties. When you're revising your content on your website, check the heading structure. So your title for your page should always be in H1, and then any following titles after that should either be in H2 and H3. You don't want to be using an H1 in the middle of the page. Check your images on your website. Make sure that they have alternative text, or you may have heard the term alt text. They should be short and descriptive. Imagine you're a screen reader and you're describing the images to your user. That's the best way to kind of put them together. Another thing you should be checking for is review your links and your button copy. If you're using copies such as read more or click here, consider changing these links as they are seen as uninformative. They cause problems when they're read out loud and taken out of context, when a person's using a screen reader to navigate the site using links alone. Instead, you want to make sure that the link copy gives your user the context or an indication of what the purpose is. These are just some basic tasks and actions that you can do. There's more in-depth work that can be done, which Hans will touch on later. When we talk about performance or when we mention performance, we're talking about how fast your website loads. You can check your performance of pages on your site using Google Lighthouse or Page Speed Insights. They're free tools to use, and they check things like performance, accessibility, and SEO. Your site is given a score and suggestions on how you can improve these aspects. Some may need your developer to help you with, but there are actions that you can take yourself. For example, large images. Now, in the report, they may be displayed as properly sized images or efficiently encode images. If images are identified, you want to locate the original version of that image and compress them using an online tool such as TinyPNG or Squish. Once you've compressed the images, you can re-upload them and replace them, and then remove the larger files. The other action is unused JavaScript or CSS. Now, this isn't just for developers. You can simplify your homepage or the page that you're auditing by removing extra sliders or content that is not needed or isn't adding any value to the page. Screaming Frog is another tool that you can download and use to crawl your whole website to identify all the pages that have large images and also other SEO issues. It's free to use up to 500 pages.
So talking about SEO and Google Analytics as well, we've included some tips and tasks around this in our checklist as well. So again, this can get quite technical, but there are some simple things just to check on a regular basis. But first of all, one thing that sometimes surprises me that that becomes apparent is, do you actually have Google Analytics or an equivalent set up on your website? I'm surprised over the years how many times I've found websites where this isn't the case. So that's one sort of thing you can definitely check. Another thing is, once you've got it set up, are you looking at it on a regular basis? So I guess for me, it's a bit like driving a car to a destination. You want to check certain things on the dashboard on a regular basis to make sure you're going to get there on time, to make sure you're not going over the speed limit, that you've got enough fuel. And those are things you'll just glance at very regularly. And I think it's the same with looking at your own website. So, and if you're a person who's not particularly good with analytics and data, um, Google Analytics 4, which is probably the most common system that people have installed on the websites, is quite difficult to get your head around sometimes. There are ways to get automated reports sent to you with just customized information that you want to see. So, for example, we sometimes help our clients set up things in Looker Studio, which is a Google tool to automate and automate those regular reports. So think about that, and there are ways around that so that you can just make sure you get a view on those statistics.
Sometimes we get questions like, how do we get to the top of the search listing? So there are a lot of factors that contribute to your listing being on the top of the page, like how many clicks your site has received. There are some simple elements you can check and things that you can do to help your ranking. So firstly, you want to check the pages across your site have meta titles. Now, I would aim for about 50 to 60 characters to ensure they don't get truncated or cut off. They should also be unique to the page and ideally match the heading of your page. Secondly is meta descriptions. Do your pages have meta descriptions? They should be ideally between 120 to 160 characters long. They should be concise, informative, and compelling to entice the users to click on the search result. It's advised to use keywords naturally and highlight page values or the purpose of the page. Descriptions should be updated on a regular basis, especially when content changes have been made, so that search engine results stay accurate and relevant. Now you can do this, probably about once a month or once every month, once every other month. It just depends as well how often you're updating your content on your site. If you do have a WordPress website, then we recommend using Yoast SEO. It can help optimize your meta information and allows you to see what it might look like as well. They also offer tools to help you optimize your content. And the third thing is keywords. So in some cases, you may already know the keywords to help you rank higher against your competitors. Or you can use tools like Google Keyword Planner to identify those keywords. The key here is not to just add them into the page, but include them in your content in a way that it makes sense to the purpose of the page. In other words, you want to try and include it in a natural yet meaningful way.
So we also wanted to include something around security here. So having a simple security audit or just straightforward checks that you can do on a regular basis. So security can sound really technical and be quite scary, but there are actually a few important things that you can do without needing to be a developer or a security specialist. And sometimes these simple things, these basic things, are the things that are most important to avoid the classic breaches that we see happening across the internet at times. So really simple. First one is, are there old users who have access? I don't mean old people who are users, but people who have access to your website that aren't part of your company anymore or part of the organization or the team anymore. If they've got access to your content management system, make sure that those people are removed on a regular basis. If you've got an agency that you used to work with that had access to your CMS, make sure that they're removed as well. So that's one thing. Then, of course, the other thing, you've heard it so many times, but are your passwords secure enough? Are you using a default password or a really simple, easy to work out password? We've seen that happen before, and so make sure that those are removed. Just checking occasionally that the site is using a secure certificate. Again, one of those things that probably most 99 times out of 100 are in place, but we do occasionally see sites that they have lapsed for some reason or they haven't been properly put in place. So making sure that that's in place. And if you're using an open source CMS like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, one of those, are you using the latest version of it? And if you've got any software plugins that are attached to your website by third parties, are they also are you using the latest versions of those? So again, referring back to our checklist, you might want to make sure that you've got a regular period of time that you are checking those things. For our clients on our support package, we check those on a weekly basis, for example. For clients who are not on a support package, they might want to check them on a more periodic basis. It's really up to you, but the more often you do check them, the better, the more secure the site's going to be. So I've been referring to our self-audit website checklist. Just a reminder, we're going to share a link to that. It's a Google Sheet. We'll share a link to that at the end.
So this is a good moment to pause and recap. We've heard the 4 reasons as to why auditing matters and the importance of them. We've gone through the checks that you can conduct yourself, from checking content, creating personas, to simple performance tests. Now we'll go through when to go deeper when auditing and a short QA before wrapping up the session.
So this next section is about when you don't have time, and let's face it, a lot of us are doing lots of priorities. We can't all have the time to go into this level of depth on our websites. So it's those sort of opportunities. It's when you don't have the right tools or you don't have the skill sets. Or you just want some objectivity, chance for someone to stand back and view your website from a distance. So this next section is about recognizing those moments and when it's worth going deeper and calling in support. So there's a lot you can do with a checklist, and sometimes the small things can have a big impact, as I was implying earlier on, and that's why I've used this image of an iceberg, because at certain points you're going to come across issues that aren't obviously on the surface. You might have this feeling that something's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. There might be areas where you need a different type of expertise, such as accessibility or SEO, or sometimes you just want a fresh pair of eyes to look at that. So we're going to cover just 5 of those now, hopefully the top 5 things, and some of the things you mentioned earlier on in the poll that we asked earlier on. So we're going to talk about focus groups, user testing, and then we're going to talk about SEO and accessibility and even carbon impact. So where would you find these people? We're not necessarily going to recommend specific people. We've got a couple of recommendations, but you can find people through your own networks. You may be searching on LinkedIn. So Katie, do you want to start off talking about focus groups?
Yeah. So one of the things, so coming back to using your audiences to audit your website, we've worked with a couple of HDK clients running focus groups with attenders and target audiences. The reason we've done focus groups, and the reason I would recommend them, and I would recommend that you use an external invigilator or facilitator to run them, just because you tend to get your own sort of bias otherwise, but is that a focus group means that you can consider things qualitatively and in a lot more depth. So you can look at your website aesthetics. Do your attenders consider the aesthetic to be old-fashioned? Or are your target attenders turned off by the aesthetic? Do they think it reflects your brand? Do they find it cluttered? Is it logical? Big one. Is it logical? Can they navigate it easily? Are they irritated by the length of the copy or the size of the font? Are there enough videos? Too many videos? Are the videos taking too long to load? And then again, as I referred to earlier, are there clashes between the different types of audience members, which you can pick up beautifully in a focus group? So for English National Ballet, we're holding groups with both regular committed EMB attenders and their target attenders to see where there might be differences of opinion when it comes to the site, and more importantly, different needs and expectations. So with Museum of the Home, changes were made to the site structure and design based on feedback from these groups, so they really can have a very significant impact. This is something that clearly can be done to an existing site, where straightforward changes can be accommodated and updates made to bring the site more in line with your user expectations. So another useful tool is looking at user journeys. So user journeys using user testing with 6 or 7 people. The advice is you never really need to go above 8 people outside of your organization, being drawn from different backgrounds, different users, and being set simple tasks such as buying a ticket for someone with access needs, or finding out more about memberships, or getting a list of your staff or trustees, seeing whether your cafe is child friendly or if you have a cloakroom. Very straightforward tasks. And the next slide just shows you the variety of different people. You will be amazed at how your assumptions and how easy these processes are will be challenged. You're looking at your site all the time, it holds no secrets. But to a new user, it can be enormously challenging. It's also a great opportunity to test accessibility, making sure that you're being tested with someone with access needs, and making sure that you're checking across all different platforms, so desktop, laptop, mobile, etc. Just making sure that you're testing all of those different user journeys. Something else that's very straightforward for you to do yourselves, and you can either do it in-house or using your audiences, is a card sort to see if your mega menu is as logical as it could be. So write the names of all the different pages on your site onto post-it notes, or using a platform such as Figma, and get people to group them together logically and find out, are they with the pages they currently sit with? Are there any surprises? Are there pages people can't place, and therefore are there pages that you can lose? So this slide shows the cart sort we did with the wider team at English National Ballet. And it was a really useful exercise for the ENB web team to see how other departments sorted the pages. So it's a very straightforward exercise to see if the main navigation of your site is still fit for purpose. All of these things you can do yourself, or you can bring in an external agency to help you, and they'll improve the effectiveness of your website without having to completely overhaul it.
So I wanted to pick up on SEO. So we obviously talked about the things that you can do, but what happens when you can bring in a specialist? At HDK, we have Tom, who you may have seen on some of these webinars before, and I think it's because this is an area where there are things that you can do around SEO. There's things that your agency, like us, will do through practice all the time. But this is an area that's changing a lot, and I think we'll see a lot of change with the advent of AI. So having someone who is absolutely focused in our team on SEO is really important to us. He's navigating all of these changes that are happening as they happen, and able to give us a really good strategic view on the importance of SEO, how to get the best out of it from a website point of view. So that, I think, is why it's useful to have an SEO expert do an external audit for you.
So in terms of accessibility as well, as we previously said, there are things that you can be doing yourself and checking yourself. But there are times where, for example, you might engage with your web agency to run, for example, a wave report. Now that simply just flags up anything that you might want to address, and they can help you do that. We've also worked with other agencies to help with accessibility, such as Access by Design, where from design stage, we'd be able to view what does work, what doesn't work, and give you feedback on that.
And then finally, our last one is carbon impact. And I think this is an area that is changing, and we're seeing more interest in this. For HDK, we've been interested in this for a long time. We changed all our hosting to hosting powered by renewable energy. 10 years ago, it was something we focused on becoming a B Corp, but it's now something that we're seeing other our clients talking about, and understanding why it's important. The good thing here is that if you're thinking about accessibility, if you're thinking about speed of your website, um, those sorts of things, a lot of that will have an impact on your how efficient the carbon impact of your website is as well. We're lucky also that we have on the team someone who worked with the company that developed the website carbon calculator as well. So carbon impact, I think that's going to be something that we're going to see people wanting to do more audits around in the future as well. So, just to why should you use an outsider to help you audit your website? So, kind of touching on it at the beginning, but this is about when sometimes you're just too close to your own content, and an outside perspective, whether from an agency, a freelancer, or using a user group, can help. They'll help you to identify those blind spots, the things that you've stopped noticing yourself. It could be a challenge to company culture assumptions. So a very basic example, maybe you've always used serif fonts, and an accessibility expert suggests that maybe sans serif fonts might be a more appropriate way to go. It might be that these specialists can benchmark you against other agencies in a more of an anecdotal way, perhaps. It might be that you just don't have the internal resources, or the time isn't available to do these things yourself. So what are the triggers? When is it the right time to go deeper? So it might be, for example, when you're not hitting your digital goals, your KPIs. It might be that you just sense that your site feels a little bit off and your site's not working the way that you want it to. Or picking up on some of Katie's points, maybe audiences have shifted, or your organization, the goals of your organization has shifted, and your website needs to reflect that. Maybe you're just planning a big major update and you want to get the evidence and the right framework in mind before you make those changes. We've seen it important when teams have changed. So a website is launched with one team, a new team have over time taken over, and they're maybe not as aligned with the original team's visions. So they want that evidence to before making sort of big changes. Or maybe you don't have a budget for a new website, and but you do have the budget to make important changes, and you want to avoid an unnecessary rebuilds. So the good news is you don't have to do all of this at once, and you don't have to do it alone. So you've got the things that you can do regularly with a self-audit checklist, and you've got things that you might want to go into more deeper, but you might not need to do that so regularly. It'll cost you more, so you might want to do that at when the time demands it. So whether it's a performance review, accessibility check, SEO deep dive, knowing where to focus and where you can make the most meaningful changes is important. Now, thank you for that. I've got a few minutes. Let's take sort of 7 minutes for a discussion or questions. I don't know where this is going to go, but if you've got any questions that you want some help with, maybe we can answer them, or maybe there are other experts in the group today that can help answer some of those questions. So put your questions in the chat. Yes. So Helen asks about how AI will change SEO. We touched on this in a recent webinar. Tom did a 5-minute segment on how AI is going to change that. So I'll refer you back to one of the previous webinars that we did. I can't remember as I'm talking what the name of it is, but it's only about 2 or 3 months ago. But basically, what you'll see if you're going to Google, as an example, you'll see that when we used to search Google and you get all the list of websites, then came the adverts and they started to push the organic results further down the list. Now what you're starting to see is Gemini which is Google's AI offering, putting a curated answer, an AI answer at the top of the page now. So you're often seeing that before you see the ads, before you get to really organic search. So the idea of people actually going to your website for information when they can get it straight from Google, from an AI response, is clearly going to affect how many people are visiting your website, um, and how you're ranked on search engines, and whether people even go to your website, whether they need to go to the website. So it's going to be really interesting to see how AI is going to affect that. Okay, I'm going to share with you our checklist that we've been working on. So as I said earlier on, I touched on this. This isn't a comprehensive list. It's just something that we have created, partly for this webinar. It's something that we'll probably build on if we ever do this webinar again. And it's something, the idea is that we've made it so that you can copy it and you can start to customize it yourself. So if I just quickly click on it, what you will see or on the is that we've got examples. We've got an example at the top. We've put things in sections. That's the orange bands along. And then we've done a first column of different tasks that you might want to do. And then we try to put our tips in some of those in the next column. So it might be a link to another website. It might just be a prompt. And then in column C, you'll be able to see that you can start to fill in how often you want to do those things. Some of those things, I think, don't get too worked up about how often. It's I think very much instinct, your capacity are all going to dictate what you choose as your frequency. But I think you'll instinctively know how important something is, or how often, how late you can leave things. I've suggested you have a column where you document when you last did that audit or check, and then maybe you want to share it with team members. So that's the owner of this, and then always have a note to to remind yourself of something important for the next time you run the audit or the check. And then we've created some kind of status that you can play around with. So that's a checklist that you can copy, make it your own, add things as you think of them, because every organization, every website is going to be different. You're going to think of things that are very bespoke to yours. You might learn about new things as you go along, but this will be a start that you can then build on going forward. If today's session has raised more questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We're always happy to talk through the next steps, whether that's a light touch review or something more in depth. And just remains for me to say from Levita, Katie, myself, thanks for joining us. And we hope you feel more equipped to give your website the attention it deserves. Thank you.